So, the first question I just want to ask, and this is something I've been wondering for a while. Can you take me through your history with swimming, like how long you've been in the sport and like where you started with it?
Okay. Well, we'll start at the beginning. When I was 8, I joined the rec swim team as part of a summer league, and I swam. Uh, let's see, I started. So I started 8, did the 8 and unders, did the 10 and unders for 2 years, and then I did the 12 and unders for 2 years. And I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time, and I got reasonably good, for summer league. And I wanted to go and do year-round swimming, but my parents said no. So I took up tennis full time, uh,
Huh.
and and I did. I could have done the summer league the next year, and I showed up as a 13-year-old, and I was so much more into tennis at that point, so I just decided to play tennis tournaments in the summer. And so I did that. I concentrated on tennis all the way through college. I played 4 years of college tennis. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was fantastic. Um, I recommend it to anybody. Um, I'm a really big fan of college athletics, but so I was in a Division III school, and just it's a lot more low key, I suppose, than Division 1. However, I didn't look at it that way. I was really into it. It was a big deal. And then I went to graduate school, and for a while I was trying to play tennis, but it was taking a lot of time, and I decided about after the first semester of grad school that it's time to knuckle down, and so I needed a sport that I could do that wouldn't take so much time. So I started swimming, and I swam with. Uh, at lunchtime, there was a group of kids that were former uh, varsity, intercollegiate swimmers, and they were either working in the area or they were just finishing up school, but they decided not to. But they still liked to swim, and they would swim at lunchtime, and I would get in there and swim with them, and they just sort of brought me along. They really taught me how to train, and for them it was like, they just wanted to get a workout, get out of, take a break from work or whatever it was, and it was like that for me too. I wanted to get a break from studying or whatever, doing stuff in the lab, and I would I would just swim with them, and after about 3 or 4 years of that, I decided I wanted to see what I could do. And so I entered the only meet that I could find that I could enter was a masters meet. So I swam a couple masters meets, and one of the guys that I was swimming with would I've got quite a bit of hair, so he said, if you're going to really see what you can do, you got to shave. So so I found another meet. It was a Pacific Masters Long Course Championships back in 1986. So I found that meet, and I entered it. I had mostly been doing just freestyle, so I entered all the freestyle events, and then I said, I'll do a 200 IMT, and I did reasonably well, and because I was in the 25 to 29 age group range at that point, there weren't a lot of swimmers that would do the 800, because if you're a swimmer, I'll just do the sprints and get out. And so I did pretty well in that race. I came in third in the race, but it turned out to be one of the top 10 times of the year that year. So that's
Oh, nice.
my one top 10 time as a master swimmer. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Then I went to Europe and postdoc, and I tried to find a pool, and I found a pool, and I swam with a team there. There was they had a short course meters pool, and I swam with them, and they had a meet. I asked if I could join them in the meet. So I got to do a meet there. So that was kind of fun too. And I decided I wanted to go back and play tennis because now I've graduated, I should have more time. So I played a lot of tennis then through my 30s. And then playing tennis in California on hard courts started to hurt my back. And so I decided I needed to do something that would be a little easier on my back. So I took up master swimming again. In 2006, I went to the Masters World Championships at Stanford, swam in that.
Oh, nice.
And then in 2009, I went to my first U.S. Masters Short Course Nationals, swam in that. Every so often, every 5-10 years, I find another Masters Nationals competition to enter and see how I do. It's been disappointing the last few years because I'm always getting slower. That's going to happen. Well, that's most of my swimming history.
That's pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff. I never knew that you did so much tennis. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So what eventually led you to coaching with Livermore Aqua Cowboys?
Well, that was a good question. So what happened? It was about 2015 or so, and I was getting starting to think about retirement, and I got some advice from one of my friends at work, and she said, if you got you should try out your retirement plan to see if you like it before you retire. So it was just a piece of advice she gave me, and then I don't know, it must have been like about 3 or 4 months later that Alex Silver asked me if I wanted to help out coaching. And I said, perfect, because now, that was sort of one of my ideas for my retirement plan. So I said, sure, I'd love to do it. So I started out it's weird because my best events were actually 200 and up, but he asked me if I wanted to be his help with the sprinters. So I said sure. So that's how I started. The first year I coached, Ryan Eccles and Michael Eccles, Megan Fairbanks. Those were my 3 charges. Nice. I would coach twice a week.
So speaking of you coaching, this has been something I've been interested in since like the first week that I had you as a coach.
Uh-huh.
Is like it felt like every single yard we were swimming was for a specific purpose. It did not feel like we were wasting any time. So I'm curious if you can walk me through your set writing process and walk me through it for the various levels of kids you've coached.
Well, while I was doing my own swimming, and I did this in tennis too, I sort of became a student of the sport. So like I would buy tennis books, read them, and then when I started swimming, I just sort of did the same thing. I would buy swimming books. So I'd go over to Barnes and Noble in Dublin and peruse the shelves there and grab whatever swimming books they have. In fact,
I've done that.
I have them here. I have about 10 or so of those books, and I just buy every one of them that they have. And so I was studying them, and there's a couple of books. One is Championship Swimming. I think that's the name of it. Championship Swimming by Bill Sweetenham. So I read through that one, which it has a whole bunch of sets in it. Great. And then there was because Sheila Tamira. She was a swimming Olympian and a triathlete Olympian and a pentathlon. It was 3 Olympics, but swimming was part of all of those events. And so she's written a couple of books on swimming faster. And there's some sets, and there's a bunch of sets in there. So I started that, and as I was swimming, I also swam masters on the team, coached by Diane Maslick, and we would always start out with a warm up. So I said, okay, that makes sense. We need to do a warm up, and then there would be some main sets. One of the principles that Diane always did was she wanted to keep us coming back, so she hardly ever did the same set twice. She would just always write a different set. So, I thought that was great. So it was good to have a variety all the time. So I kind of incorporated that. Um, uh, then I was looking through Bill Swindham's book, and there's a whole lot of drill progressions, and so I kind of borrowed those, and I said that would be a good way to warm up, is go through these drill progressions on all the strokes. So most of my workouts always start out with a warm up that goes through the progressions of any of the strokes, if not all. And then I also I forget where I stole this idea from. It was another coach. He said he liked the variety, but he didn't want to have to explain everything every time to get everybody started. Once the kids are in the water, it's a little easier to get the next set out. But getting everybody started is sometimes a problem, getting them into the water. So he said, we just do the same warm-up every day just so I can get them going. So I started to do that. But my plan is always, I do that same warm-up for a week, and then I change the warm-up. Just so that we can, focus on something different. Though, like, I think Eddie Reese and Alex Silver both told me, you got to do something at least twice a week, 3 times a week for them to get it. Just do it once, it won't stick. So you have to do it at least twice. So I'm starting to drift toward keeping elements of the warm-up for 2 weeks in a row. Make sure that everybody gets a chance to go through all of the progressions. Now I'm losing the thread. What's the next part of the question?
Well, honestly, I was always a big fan of, at least when I came into practice, I liked the consistency of it, of knowing, like, okay, this is something we're going to be doing today. This is something that I know coming in.
Yeah.
It's something that I still do both in my coaching and my swimming. I do the same warm-up. At every meet, I do the same warm-up. And I think that started from being in your group.
Yeah, we did that.
It's just become part of my part of my personality as a swimmer and a coach, that I really like consistency while still changing things to make it interesting.
Yeah.
That's initially what got me to even want to interview you, is to just learn about your process and how you would do things. So the next question I've got is it continues the thread of this question, I think. I'm curious about what's the inspiration behind the Beat the Clock set.
Oh, that's from the swim coach's Bible, Volume 2.
That was a pretty fun set.
There's a chapter in there about making it fun, and that set is in there. It's from Bob Steele, one of the sets.
What were the results like the first time you did it?
It was a great success the first time we did it, because everybody pushed themselves. Right? It starts off easy.
Yeah.
But it's like putting a frog in a pot of water and then heating it up. For a while, you don't notice it, right? And then you get to the end, and it's, oh my gosh, you got to keep going, go hard. So I love that of that set. Made it, and I should say, I almost always try out all these sets myself. Mostly ahead of time. Lately, I haven't been able to do them all ahead of time, but when I was coaching you, I had tried out all the sets ahead of time. And if I didn't like it, I didn't give it to you. I liked it.
I definitely like that a lot. I like it a lot when my coaches are doing the sets that they assign to us. Because when I've said it almost word for word when I'm coaching. If my athletes don't like a set, I'll tell them I've done this.
Yeah.
Because usually I'll be giving them something that maybe I'd done that day, and I'm just modifying it for maybe younger kids or to make the intervals easier.
Yeah.
So, sort of bouncing off of that, like, what have been some of the sets you've done that have I guess have had the best results is kind of the wrong term, but just have had the best outcomes. And then conversely, what sets have been kind of like you've done them once and been like, okay, maybe this didn't work. We need to try something different.
Yeah, I usually forget about those. I don't, so none of those pop into my mind right now. But something we did and I never did again. I mean, Alex Silver taught me that too. That sometimes you have to do the sets a few times so that the kids know how to do it, and you can see the results better. So I almost never give up on a set with only one try, but sometimes I do when it's like I didn't like it that much, and it didn't have didn't have good resonance with the kids. But sets that have helped a lot are all these boiling water sets. So one that I like a lot, and I did it last year a fair amount, and I haven't done it at all this year, but I like this set, is where you do like, say, 5 100s on an interval. And then you make the next one is 4 100s with 1 second less rest.
I remember this set.
And then you do 3 100s with now 2 seconds less rest than the 500. And then so on, drop 1 second. And if you make it all the way through and you start off, next time you do it, instead of starting off on a round number, you start off on 9. Like, instead of 130, you start 129 and work your way down. And pretty soon you're starting off, maybe 125, working down to 120, or you're starting at 120, working your way down to 115. And that worked really well. So they turned out not to like this set very much after a while, but it really helped them get a lot better, frankly, because it was gradual.
I remember that set. That set did wonders for my 500 in high school.
Yeah, it was a great set. There was also some sets that I used to swim at lunchtime with a guy who swam for Cal, was in the '68 Olympic trials, and he was a distance swimmer, and so he would always come up with distance sets. One that I liked a lot that he and I did together was where you do an 800, then you do 2 broken 800s after that, and you have to descend your time. And what we would do together was he would give me a head start, and I'd have to try to stay ahead of him. If he caught me, he'd give me a bigger head start. If he didn't catch me, he'd give me a smaller head start on the next one. And it made first, it was always fun, but it also, even being the person being chased, I didn't want to get past, but I worked pretty hard. So I've done that a few times with the kids, and I think some of them like it, but it takes a long time to explain. It takes a while to get them, it took so long to get them to understand how to do the set. I try it, but when every time I get new kids, then I gotta re-explain it. So
Yeah.
I don't try it all the time, but it's a fun set to do. We did it this summer a couple times. That was kind of.
So, I definitely know what the answer to this question might be, but I'm gonna ask it anyways because it's a cool thing that I think you've done before. So, as a coach, what ways have you successfully motivated your swimmers, and what ways have you I guess dangled a carrot sounds kind of like demeaning, but you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like giving them something to work towards in a set that's been successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I coach the varsity group mostly. I do now coach some of the pre-comp, but the varsity kids are motivated by wanting to make their high school varsity team. And at least at Granada High School, those are time standards.
Yeah.
So, that seems to be a pretty good motivator for them. So I say, okay, let's do that. here's what the time standard is. Here's what we got to get. This is a kind of set that will help you get that time standard, but you have to do it right. And this is where it's a somewhat problem. Like if you're a sprinter, I'll give them a set like 12:50s on the minute, and you have to go fast on all of it. And that's kind of a painful set in a way, right? If you ease into it, if you start easy and then get faster, it's not so bad. But that's not how you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to go fast on every single one of them. And so it takes some cajoling to get them to do that. You can see them saving up, and then they go really fast on the last one. I go, no, that's not how that set goes. You got to go all fast on all of them. On the distance ones, like those are more more aerobic based, and it's not quite as painful. But I like to do stuff where you have to descend, and that's also a problem. Most of the kids don't understand pace right away, and they'll go fast on the first one, and then they get slower and slower. So you got to work on teaching them about pace, making sure they, yes, you're going to go faster on the next one.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty much everything I've got for you. But as per usual with my interviews, I always give the people that I'm interviewing time at the end to promote whatever they'd like or just talk about whatever they like. So this is your time. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to promote, anything.
Well,
if anything.
I'm retired, so to speak. I'm just the swim coach now, but I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and the kids make it fun. They're always teaching me something new, so that's really great. But I don't have anything that I want to promote. But I do like trying to bring science into the swimming, and the problem with that is that it's just such a scientifically complicated thing. Right? You can't like the only thing you can like definitely calculate what's going to happen is if you drop a ball in the water and calculate how long it takes it for it to hit the bottom of the pool. That you can do. You can calculate that. But anything else more complicated than that, you can't really calculate. There are a few places where they're looking at using computational fluid mechanics and fluid dynamics to look at swimming. But even there, it's very rudimentary. They have stick figures that they use for the swimmer, and I mean there is some literature you can go look at, but a lot of the problem is in the literature is that it's very hard to control enough of the variables. If you have, say you have 20 swimmers and they're all different, it's hard to come to some conclusions based on 20. So, but how do you get 200 swimmers to do the same thing for 6 weeks in a row or whatever you want to do like that? It's very difficult to get those kind of studies done. I do like the use of technology. So like Gary Hall Sr. from the race club, he does a lot of using allometry and pressure sensors and video analysis, which I think is great. But even there, he doesn't have the number of people to look at to come up with meaningful conclusions about all swimmers. You can make a meaningful conclusion about one swimmer, because you can say, hey, the pressure sensor is saying you're not pulling as hard on the right as you are on the left, so we can fix that. But making a conclusion about all swimmers, that all swimmers are weaker on the right, it's not. You can't do that from such a limited number of swimmers. So, but I'm very interested in that, and I did try to do a study on once with LAC, with the Live and Lock with Cowboys, and that was kind of fun. But even there, the problem is, like, say you have 12 swimmers, and getting them to try their hardest on every attempt, you can't tell whether that one was slower because they didn't try as hard, or that one was slower because you changed a variable. Right? So you really need a lot of people in order to make this kind of studies work. But they're still fun to look at, fun to talk about.